Joining me is Rowan Dean, editor of The Spectator Australia and host of Outsiders and Sky News every Sunday at 9 a.m. Rowan, normally I look for these things. We laugh a little that kids could be so stupid, but this has turned a corner. This is just savagery. It frightens me. It frightens me. Here's another example, by the way, from the protests at America's Columbia University. What do you think's going on, Rowan?
Well, it is evil, Andrew. Anyone who can shout out "We are" or "I am Hamas" is basically saying, "I'm prepared to behead babies. I'm prepared to rape or see women raped in front of their dying children and then murder them." Is prepared to say, "I glorify in a woman being mass raped, butchered, her body broken and paraded in front of jeering mobs." So if you say "We are Hamas" or "I am Hamas," you are saying, "I am that sort of person. We are those sort of people," unequivocally. And it's not as if the information isn't out there. It's not as if we haven't had months and months to look at the material if we so chose and to verify it, etc., etc. This is a terrifying moment in Western history. It's the first time, I think, that the so-called intellectual class or academic class have shown themselves to be absolute cowards, absolutely devoid of any morality whatsoever, and basically as low down on the evolutionary scale as you can get, prepared to tolerate the most extreme bigotry, tribalist hatred, calls to violence, lack of empathy for fellow human beings, everything that lifts humans above the worst of the animal kingdom. Much of the animal kingdom is wonderful, but everything that lifts us above the worst of the animal kingdom is being trashed by our universities, is being decimated by our authority figures, by many of our politicians. You're right to point the finger of blame at the complete and utter lack of leadership from Anthony Albanese, fueled by the likes of Penny Wong, Tony Burke, Ed Husick and others, who are pandering to this kind of tribalism for the most base political motives. They make me sick, and they should make all Australians sick. We have to come out of this.
Yeah, you put your finger on it. Society doesn't fall just because there are outside enemies. It falls because it's filled with cowards who will not defend the values on which that society rests. And that is exactly what we're seeing. But Rowan, I still think it's important to underline, not to sit here and tremble and magnify their power, but to underline how stupid they are, how vicious so many of them are, how entitled they are, absurdly entitled, so out of touch with reality. I want to give you a comic example. Here's one of the leaders at the protest at America's Columbia University, very prestigious, where students broke into its administrative wing, its hall. They kept 3 cleaners prisoners for a while, would you believe, and then demanded the university send them all food.
Well, I guess it's ultimately a question of what kind of community and obligation Columbia feels it has to its students. Do you want students to die of dehydration and starvation or get severely ill, even if they disagree with you? If the answer is no, then you should allow it's crazy to say because we're on an Ivy League campus, but this is like basic humanitarian aid we're asking for.
It seems like you're sort of saying, we want to be revolutionaries, we want to take over this building, now would you please bring us food?
In fact, Rowan, the administrators of Columbia University finally hardened up, and they sent the protesters not food, but armed police who busted in, cleared them out, arrested people. It took too long, but what I'm looking for is university bosses here taking firm action as well.
Well, they have to, and that clip, it's worthy of the best comedy. And I watched it several times thinking, no, there's got to be a stitch-up. This has got to be a comedian. This has got to be Armie Horowitz or Arvie or someone doing a joke. But no, it was the real thing. She's the real deal, and she's got she's doing a course in all sorts of mad, kind of crazy Marxist combined whatever studies. The answer here is yes, the vice chancellors have to restore a modicum of morality to their campuses. But that will only come. My experience of the vice chancellors is they're a pretty greedy, cowardly mob, and they will only be swayed when people stop employing people from their universities. For example, I'm not in a position to employ people as I once was, but I once had 200 people that I was in charge of. If I were in an office, I would be saying anyone from Sydney University, forget it. Unless you can prove to me that you are not infested with that mindset, you won't get a job here. So it's up to employers, it's up to donors, to the universities and others to put the pressure on the universities, Andrew.
These are moral standards that must be imposed, must be stood for. I don't think you can surrender anymore. Rowan Dean, thank you so much for your time.